Gracias, señor. Okay. Let's see. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari. Gopi Janat Malabha Girivardhagote. Gopi Janat Malabha Girivardhagote. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Manachagate Yamuna Tera Manachagate Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bhikhagate Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bhikhagate Gopi Janat Malabha Girivardhagote Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhagote Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Manachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bhikhagate Ayuradambadhova Kunjavihagute Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravatikacharya Halsterteta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Dantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasudhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sayama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagadadha Swami Ki Jai Yamunamaya Ki Jai Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bo. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Jayatarni. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 45th chapter, text 33. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tayor Dvija Varash Tushta Shuddha Bhavanu Vrittivi Provacha Vedan Akilan Asango Panishado Guru Tayo Dvija Varastushta Shuddha Bhavanu Vrittivi Provacha Vedan Akilan Asangopana Shito Guru Tayor Dvija Varastushta Shuddha Bhavanu Vrittivi Provacha Vedan Akilan Sangopanashito Guru Tayor Dvija Varastushta Shuddha Bhavanu Vrittivi Provacha Vedan Akilan Sangopanashito Guru. Okay. right? Tai-ho, there. Dvijavara, the best of Brahmins, Sandipani. Tushta, satisfied. Shuddha, pure. Bhava, with love. Anuvritti, by these submissive acts. Pravacha, he spoke. Vedan, the Vedas. Akilan, all. Sa, together with. Anga, the 6 corollary literatures. Upanishada, and the Upanishads. Guru, the spiritual master. Translation, that best of Brahmins, the spiritual masters, Sandipani, was satisfied with their submissive behavior, and thus he taught them the entire Vedas, together with their 6 corollaries and the Upanishads. So you can repeat. That best of Brahmanas, the spiritual master Sandipani, was satisfied with their submissive behavior, and thus he taught them the entire Vedas, together with their 6 corollaries and the Upanishads. So there's no purport by the servants of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, so we're just going to read Jiva Goswami's and Sanatana Goswami's short commentaries. Jiva Goswami says, he was satisfied by their actions conducted with bhakti, Shuddha Bhava. This will be explained later by the Lord in the story of Sri Dhamma, and therefore is not explained by Shukadeva here. They learned the 4 Vedas. And Sanatana Goswami states, he was satisfied by their actions conducted with bhakti, Shuddha Bhava. This will be explained later by the Lord in the story of Sri Dhamma, and therefore is not explained by Shukadeva here. They learned the 4 Vedas. He was famous as a teacher guru, or was accepted as Acharya Guru. Thus he spoke with great affection, Pravacha. He taught only to them as Kshatriyas. That's also interesting. So again, the verse. Tayodvijavaras tushta Shuddha bhavanu vrittibe Pravacha veda makilan Sango panashito guru. So Omagana Timidandasha Ganachana Shalakya Chaksur un Meditam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurave Namaha. So it's actually very interesting. Just going to quote a verse from the Bhagavatam. Yasha, actually it's not from the Bhagavatam. It's from the Upanishad. Yasha devi para bhaktir yata devi tata kuru. Tashaite katita yarte percussion te mahatmana. That's from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 633. That if one has implicit faith, implicit means no doubt, of course, in the spiritual master and in the Vedic literatures, then all the imports and purports of the Vedic literatures are revealed to one immediately. So, of course, Krishna and Balaram were quite expert in studying the Vedic literatures and could be taught the Vedic literatures according to their position of Kshatriyas. I find that very interesting because, in other words, the teaching that the spiritual master imparts to the disciple is done according to someone's varna. So there was some actually varnashram instruction too. So Krishna and Balaram were instructed. However, even if one doesn't or can't take instruction, or not take instruction, but cannot read, let's say, but can take instruction from the spiritual master and follow that instruction, even without reading, then things will be revealed in the heart, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena amam upayantite tesham satadiyuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam, which is actually probably the operative phrase in that particular verse. Unto those, tesham satadiyuktanam, those who were connected, bhajatam but priti purvakam, who worship me with love. So in other words, Krishna and Balaram, as mentioned in this verse, were worshiping the spiritual master in love. And the evidence is that they were willing to carry out the order of the spiritual master submissively. That word is also used there in this particular verse. They were submissive to their spiritual master. And so that submissiveness is indicated by one's willingness to follow, by one's willingness to do what the spiritual master says and be dedicated to the spiritual master's mission. And the question is, how does one come to the point, just, drilling down and referring to ourselves, how does one actually come to the point of being submissive in relationship with the spiritual master? It was a big question. So traditionally, there was brahmachari training that taught one how to be submissive, or one was able to imbibe the consciousness of being submissive. And there's some stories about this brahmachari training. Of course, the verse spoken by Prahlad Maharaj is brahmachari gurukule vasandantar koror hitam archiyan dasavan nicho. That the brahmachari went to the gurukula. It's interesting that nowadays in ISKCON, people take the word gurukul as synonymous with school, with ISKCON school, but it's not exactly the same thing, because it's Hare Krishna school, but actually gurukul would mean the place of the spiritual master. It doesn't necessarily mean an ashram facility. We are not, ourselves, we're not so much in favor of ashrams because they've ended up being pretty dysfunctional. So Gurukul actually means to be trained, to live in the place of the spiritual master, and be trained. Brahmachari Gurukule Vasandanta, in becoming tamed in one's senses. And of course, Lord Rishabhadev says, Adanta Gopir Vishatam Tamishram Punash. No, that's actually Prahlad Maharaj, sorry. Adanta Gopir Vishatam Tamishram Punash Charvita Charvanam. One who has uncontrolled senses, this is actually interesting, they'll keep doing the same thing and they're going to think they're going to get a different result, as my great Acharya Albert Einstein stated, that's insanity. Keep doing the same thing and think you're going to get a different result. So, that's called chewing the chewed, is the direct literal translation. So anyway, so one is trained to tame the senses. It's interesting, tame the senses. How do you tame the senses? You tame the senses with the intelligence. And what is the intelligence? The intelligence is the form and direction of the super soul, of course, as Srila Prabhupada states, but the intelligence is based upon the order and desire of Krishna. And how does one know what the intelligence and desire of Krishna is? That comes through Krishna's representative, the spiritual master. Just like I was listening to a class that Srila Prabhupada was giving this morning as I was doing my deity worship. And Arjuna, this is all in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is really interesting. Actually, there was an article in Back to God that said, the heading was that the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita doesn't have philosophy. Well, the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita does have philosophy. It has so much philosophy. That was a misheading. So anyway, Arjuna, he was objecting to the fight, of course, and Krishna was telling him to fight. So sometime, and it was actually a violation of ordinary principles. That Arjuna should fight. Ordinary material. You're not supposed to fight with or kill your relatives, your cousin brothers, and your whole family members. You're not supposed to do that. That's actually probably illegal. And also later on, in the Battle of Kurukshetra, Prabhupada gave the example that Arjuna was encouraged to do something that was completely against Kshatriya Dharma. What was that? That he was told to kill Karna when Karna was on the ground. Now the Kshatriyas, Prabhupada elaborated on this quite extensively in the class. He said, if a Kshatriya gets down from his chariot, the other Kshatriya has to get down from his chariot. If the Kshatriya loses his bow, then the other Kshatriya has to give up his bow and fight in the same way, with the same type of weapons or whatever it is, that the other Kshatriya, it has to be an even fight. There was a chivalry. But Krishna said to Arjuna, you actually killed Karna, even while Karna was on the ground trying to free his chariot wheel. And Arjuna said, this is not proper, Krishna. He was preaching to Krishna. And Krishna said, do it. And Arjuna, of course, did it. Of course, the story goes that Krishna had to sort of like, I hate to use the word, egg Arjuna on by saying, don't you remember what he did? Don't you remember, he was offending Draupadi? Don't you remember that? So kill him. And Arjuna got angry and angry and angry. So Arjuna really wasn't ready just to follow Krishna's order at that point. So Krishna had to really inspire Arjuna and instill in him some emotional reason for killing Karna. So anyway, so the point is we know what Krishna wants because it's coming from Krishna directly. Of course, in Arjuna's case, it was coming from Krishna directly. But in our case, it's actually coming from Krishna's representative. Brahmachari Guru Kule Vasan Danta Gurorhitam Archyan, one learns good behavior, Dasavan, and actually that's really important. I was asked the question the other day, how do you maintain sannyas after so many years? Well, at this age, it's not so hard. So when you're 74, what else are you going to do in life, Can't apply for a new job. But anyway, so how did you maintain sannyas throughout your whole, Krishna consciousness? And I said, Dasavan, I'm a servant of Prabhupada. It's a question of this self-identification. Self-identification means we all have a self-identification. Of course, in the material world, that's an upadi. It's a false identification, that I'm American, I'm white, I'm black, and Indian, or a member of this culture, or I'm a sannyasi. That's also an upadi. If I think like that, identified like that, it's my service, yes, but I'm not a sannyasi. I'm not a man. I'm not a woman. I'm gopi bharta padakamal dasa. So that principle of dasavan is really important that one learns, and that was what was taught in the ashram of the spiritual Dasavan, Nicho. Anyway, so all these different principles were taught in the ashram of the spiritual master. And so how can one imbibe them? Let me first let me tell some stories from the Mahabharata. These are some of my favorite stories about how the guru would train his disciple or disciples. And actually one thing is that Prabhupada said that when the brahmachari would live in the ashram of the spiritual master, he would not eat unless the spiritual master called him to eat. That's the first training. Controlling the tongue is so hard. When you're hungry and if your spiritual master doesn't call you to eat, what are you going to do? Guru Maharaj, and then you go before the spiritual master, your stomach is rumbling. Maybe he gets the hint. And he still doesn't call you. The Prabhupada said that's how the brahmachari was trained up. It's pretty heavy training. So anyway, I'm not saying we should do that. I'm not advocating that in today's world, but I'm saying this is the traditional method for training up brahmachari. So there's two stories from the Mahabharata that are very interesting in this regard about how gurus trained up their disciples. Here's one story. I'll tell both stories. One story is once upon a time, the spiritual master wanted to train his disciple up to eat less, to lose weight, be healthier and stuff like that. So he told his disciple, you go out, instead of just hanging around the ashram all day long and eating, you go out and you take care of the cows. Go out all day long. He's going to miss noon prasadam and probably the evening prasadam, probably breakfast prasadam too. So he goes out and he's out there, and the disciple has not lost any weight after some time. And the guru says, what are you doing? And he says, well, I'm out there. There's a lot of people. I'm begging. And people are giving me food because that's traditionally the type of begging that it's called madhukari, that the devotees would do. They would actually beg for food, not just beg for money and go around with credit card machines and everything like that, but they would beg for food. So the spiritual master said, don't you understand? If you beg for your guru. That's the training. You give to the guru. Just like if one goes on Sankirtan, it's not that you go out, and of course nowadays it's come to that point, it has in certain places, that people go on Sankirtan and then keep the money and support themselves and not give to the guru. So anyway, so they, if you remember the Radha Damodar party, you know that was very much instilled in you that you're collecting, whatever you're collecting is going to Prabhupada's book fund, right? It's going to Prabhupada. The book fund is what? Prabhupada's heart. Isn't that what you were taught? The book fund is Prabhupada's heart. So that was the brahmachari training. Like Drishta Prabhu had really nice brahmachari training. That's why he's such a good devotee today. So, don't get scared. So, anyway, so, yeah, that's why he's a fixed-up devotee. He had that training. Radha Damodar, you know, it was basic training, like in the army. Basic training. I also had that training. You know, I had my personal trainer, who shall remain nameless to protect the innocent. What? Oh, from the same personal trainer I had. So that's why we're both suffering from PTSD to this day. So anyway, so he goes out and he says, you know, I have to beg for the spiritual master. So, but still there's the same problem. You know, he's not losing any weight. And so basically the spiritual master says, you know, what's happening? He said, I'm begging and you're getting the fruits of my begging, but I beg a second time for myself. And the spiritual master, this is a story from the Mahabharata, and the spiritual master says, no, both times. Okay. Yes, Guru Maharaj. So still the same problem is there. And the Guru says, what are you doing? And he says, Guru Maharaj, I am giving everything to you when I beg, but, you know, I'm milking the cows, so there's nice milk there, too. So he's really filling himself up on milk. And Guru Maharaj says, the milk is meant for the calves. Don't drink the milk. Okay, and then there's still some problems after that. And Guru Maharaj says, what's the problem now? And he says, I'm not drinking the milk. I'm not taking what I get from begging. But as the calves are drinking the milk from the cows, there's a little foam. So I'm like by the side of the calves. You know, can you imagine the poor calf is trying to drink and some guy is sucking the foam up, you know. And Guru Maharaj says, no, the calves are kind enough to save it for you, but it's meant for the calves. No. Okay, yes, Guru Maharaj. So then what happens is that the guy gets so hungry. He hasn't learned to control his senses yet. And he just looks at the trees and the branches in the trees and the creepers. And it's like that. I mean, I've actually experienced hunger sometimes like that. When I've been in the forest, I just look at the trees and want to chew on them or something like that. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced hunger like that. Yeah. You know, so he just like, so he just grabs some like berries or something like that, stuffs it in his mouth. And he becomes blind because it's poisonous. You know, you walk into the forest, there's a lot of poisonous stuff unless you're trained up. So then he's blind and he falls into a well. And what happens is the guru becomes worried. Was I too heavy with my disciple? You know, did he bloop? So anyway, so he goes out with his other disciples to try to find this one disciple. They go out to the forest, and they hear this sound from the well. Help, 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 save me. And they go to the well, they look down, and there's this disciple. And Guru Maharaj, to test him further, imagine these sort of tests from your guru, he says, what does he say? He says, just pray to the Ashvini Kumaras, they'll help you. Instead of taking him out of the well, which would be the normal thing you would do in that circumstance, and giving him medicine. So he prayed, because the Ashvini Kumaras are the medical doctors in the heavenly planets. So he prays to the Ashvini Kumaras, Swaha, whatever. And the Ashvini Kumaras come, and they give him a little medicine. It's like in the shape of a cake or something like that. And they say, eat this, and this will cure your blindness. And he, at this point, he's learned his lesson. Says that I cannot eat anything without my guru's permission. And they even try to convince him. They say, your guru took this once before, take it. And he said, no, Guru Maharaj has not given me permission to eat. Wow. Heavy story. So finally, they bless him. He gets his sight back. Guru comes and says, I'm pleased with you. And what happens? Then the Guru Maharaj allows him to get married at that point. Because previously, if someone, brahmachari went to the ashram, they wouldn't be allowed to get married until they went through that basic training. It's not that they got married just because they couldn't control their senses. But they got married after they underwent that training. Then, so that's one story. Heavy story. I should have warned everybody before class. So another story is the Guru Maharaj asks his disciple, make sure that the fields are irrigated nicely. There's ditches in the field and there's water running through the ditches. So he goes out, follows his Guru Maharaj's order, and sees that one of the ditches has like a breach in it. And so what happens is that he thinks, how can I solve this problem? He doesn't have a shovel with him or anything like that. So he lies down to actually cover the breach in the waters. Can you imagine how surrendered? The water's running over him like that. And Guru Maharaj looks for his disciple who finds him, and he says, oh, I'm very pleased. You're surrendered. So these are extreme examples, but the examples are just showing a particular point of how important it is to accept the spiritual master, and how important it is to take guidance from the spiritual master, and how important it is to develop one's sense of identity as a servant, dasavan, so that whenever there's tests in one's spiritual life, one is able to overcome those tests. So that's one point. And also we see that when the Lord appears, he sets an example of this. Recently we were speaking a lot about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when we were talking about Srivas Thakur and other associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not exhibit his devotional qualities because he's Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani until he took initiation from Ishwara Puri. Before that, he just acted as a logician, or as we say in the West, a sophist, or someone interested in Nyaya or philosophy. But then he took initiation from his guru, and then he exhibited that. And Krishna, of course, in this particular circumstance, the same thing. And Srila Prabhupada, the same thing. We find this common example there. So, on the other hand, Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita that blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. That's in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in a purport. Prabhupada says this. So, how do we balance these two principles? And I'm going to give some examples of when the guru instruction can be rejected. One example is when Bali Maharaj was worshiping his guru Shukracharya, and he was actually a very good disciple of Shukracharya, and Bali Maharaj neglected the order of his spiritual master. What did his spiritual master tell him? His spiritual master told him not to offer anything to this Brahmin boy, who happened to be Lord Vishnu. He said, don't offer anything to me because he's going to take everything away. And so Bali Maharaj rejected the order of his spiritual master. other examples of this, too. There's Sripad Ramanujacharya, who argued with his spiritual master, because his spiritual master was an impersonalist at that time. Of course, later on, his spiritual master accepted him. Similar story insofar as Madhvacharya's relationship with his spiritual master. So there's times when one can reject an instruction from the spiritual master, or in extreme cases, reject the spiritual master. Actually, was it Narahari Chakravarti writes it out, this in his Krishna Bhajanamrita. When the spiritual master has shown himself to be a non-devotee or engaged in sinful activities and things like that, at that time one can reject. But one is never supposed to reject the spiritual master unless it comes to that particular point. And of course, we do have varieties of spiritual masters like Diksha Gurus, Shiksha Gurus, Vartma Pradakshika Gurus, like that. Of course, Shiksha Guru means a guru who gives instruction. A Diksha Guru is the one who initiates you, because usually the Diksha Guru or the Shiksha Guru becomes the Diksha Guru, and usually the Diksha Guru gives instruction too. So one has to be very careful in this regard. And also sometimes one may find themselves in a situation where the guru may not be educated in a particular aspect of devotional service, so then you get the permission of the guru to accept a Shiksha Guru or instruction in some other regard. So this is like a dynamic relationship. So I would like to read here some quotes from Srila Prabhupada about following the instructions of the spiritual master and dedicating one's life and soul to the spiritual master. And these are really nice quotes that I happen to pick up. First, we're going to read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 12, text 10. And the translation is, the order of the spiritual master is the active principle in spiritual life. Anyone who disobeys the order of the spiritual master immediately becomes useless. And Prabhupada comments, here is the opinion of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Persons who strictly follow the orders of the spiritual master are useful in executing the will of the Supreme, whereas persons who deviate from the strict order of the spiritual master are useless. And then Prabhupada quotes from the Mundaka Upanishad as far as one's relationship or attitude towards the spiritual master. Samit Pani Shrotriyam Brahma Nishtam. That's a famous verse. And this verse actually illustrates how Krishna is approaching Sandapani Muni. To understand these things properly, the translation is, one must humbly approach with firewood in hand a spiritual master who is learned in the Vedas and firmly devoted to the absolute truth. Very important verse. And in addition to instructing the disciple how to approach the spiritual master in that way, it's also an instruction to those who are aspiring and looking for a spiritual master to see or, let's say, study to see if their prospective spiritual master has those qualities. Because those are the qualities of a bona fide disciple are also qualities of a bona fide spiritual master. Because the spiritual master is a disciple of his guru. That's a disciplic succession. So what are these qualities that a bona fide spiritual master should have? Samit Pani, of course, means approaching the spiritual master humbly. So one, as guru, the guru should have approached his spiritual master humbly and be dedicated to the mission of his spiritual master. And also Samit Pani, Shrotriyam must have heard nicely from his spiritual master and be on the platform of Nishta. Nishta means not deviating from the service of the Lord. So here's more quotes from Prabhupada. This is from the second canto, 8th chapter, text 6. Pure devotee, it's The purport. Pure devotees like Narada and Nityananda Prabhu take up the order of the spiritual masters, the sustenance of life. They do not mind what becomes of the future of their lives. They take the matter very seriously as the order comes from higher authority. Oh my God, not much time. From the representative Lord or from the Lord himself. Another quote. The order of the spiritual master must be carried out without hesitation, with an immediate yes. There should be no argument. That is real service to the Father and to the spiritual master. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has stated that the order of the spiritual master is the life and soul of the disciples. A man cannot separate his life from his body. A disciple, these are heavy words, cannot separate the order of the spiritual master from his life. If a disciple follows the instruction of the spiritual master in that way, he is sure to become perfect. This is confirmed in the Upanishads. The import of the Vedic instruction is revealed. We read the verse from that illustrates that point. Is revealed automatically only to one who has implicit faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his spiritual master. One may be materially considered an illiterate man, but if he has faith in the spiritual master as well as in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the meaning of the scriptural revelation is immediately manifested before him. That's 3:24:13. And of course, the example of an illiterate person is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming in touch with the person who is illiterate and trying to read the Bhagavad Gita because he was instructed to do so by his guru, and that person became the real knower of the Bhagavad Gita because he actually entered into the rasa, an understanding of the rasa between Krishna and Arjuna. So anyway, so the question is, I have more quotes here, but the question is, how can we imbibe this particular mood? Because we're not, well, thinking about myself, I had the advantage of living in the ashram like that, and so did Tristan Peru, and maybe some of the other devotees here had the advantage. But if one doesn't have the advantage, how can one imbibe that? And I think more or less by associating with people who have imbibed that. I mean, one of the things I do to help me imbibe the spirit even more is that I spend some time watching the memories that the devotees have of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, last night I was watching a memory. As I take prasadam, this is what I do when I take prasadam. I also eat too. But anyway, I was watching my godbrother, Kirti Raj. Some of you may know Kirti Raj. He's an old friend of mine from Los Angeles. And he had so much interaction with Prabhupada. He and his wife, they were married, and they went to Calcutta to serve Srila Prabhupada in the beginning days. And he would serve Prabhupada in the BBT, and he would be in Prabhupada's room putting his shoes on, or whatever. And tears were coming from his eyes. I was just thinking, oh my God, I would love to have his association, just like run down to Alatra, just to be with such a person. So by associating with people who have that faith, you know, and it definitely increases my determination to serve Srila Prabhupada. So that's the point, that we should associate with those who have the faith, and that faith will rub off on us. And, you know, I was just so inspired seeing this particular video by Kirti Raj. And Kirti Raj's wife was also there, and she's so devoted to Prabhupada, and she related the times when Prabhupada chastised her for something, you know, whatever. I forget her name right now. But, you know, it's just so inspiring. And so that's my answer. If you haven't lived in the ashram, be trained, or have post-traumatic stress disorder like me, then just do that. And you just see that. I mean, just seeing the tears well up in his eyes was, I mean, just overwhelming. Yeah, that was that. I wasn't so kind and gentle in those days.
Govindam Adipurusham Kamaham Tam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agong Ikamaniya Vishesha Shobha
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Jami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Jami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Motadlay Srimate Bhaktivedanta Samaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachar Nivasesha Shunyavati Pasyajade Zatarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gaurmata Pranadaya Shri Krishna Gaurmata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gaurmata Branda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sane Norata Brenda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Rod, I'm looking on a rod, I'm looking on a thread. Yeah, I'm looking on a rod, I'm looking on a thread. Rate, rate. Rate, 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 rate. Shirad, hey, Jai Om Vishnu Pa.
Jai. Baba Mahadavaki Shreya Kairavya Chandrikavitaranam Vijavaduji Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Paramrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smaranena Kala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjanina Nuraga Trinada Pisunichena Torora Pisuhishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Sundarim. Thank you. Isakamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahoita Ki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vapada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrishim Vachintaya Nayanam Galashu Daraya Varanam Gadgada Rudaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Bukada Hane Bhavishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlisha Vapadamritam Anastumam Adharshanam Marmahatakurotuva Yatatata Bhavindadolam Pato Mat Prananatastusha Evanapara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of his birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone Thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. They're not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? Oh, Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally.